So for our first talking point here, I'm gonna kind of summarize my thoughts. I'll write them out more in the post. For those of you who don't want to hear me ramble on, I'll try not to. Try and make it a little bit short and sweet. I will write them out in the post below. But anyways, this talking point is for all levels of players. Please comment. Let us know what you think. Drafters, I would love to know what all levels of drafters think of this. I thought it would be a fun thing to discuss and get some chatter going. Because for those people that are locked into playoffs, it might be a little bit relaxing to go over something fun. And for those players who are locked out of playoffs, it's always fun to have something that you can engage in that, obviously being out of playoffs, you're unable to engage in. I know personally that it was really nice when we had the Poke Center from Douglas and Calvin. It was really nice when I didn't make playoffs. That that was something I could still look forward to. Obviously, this is not going to be a weekly video, but it'll be a big video. So, anyways, first one is Tier 1 Clefable. I've been thinking about Tier 1 Clefable for a long time. Sometimes it's just a thought that goes through my head. Sometimes I've thought about it long. But yeah, anyways, Tier 1 Clefable. I drafted it myself. It's been drafted by Chris, and I believe those are the only 2 times. My biggest problem with Clefable is I felt, and this can be said about other defensive Pokemon, of course, but with Clefable, I felt suffocated by players running bans or specs. I felt anytime a player ran bans or specs, I had a completely useless Pokemon. If they just had a neutral attack with the ban or specs, I could not deal with it as Clefable. I couldn't switch into it. And as a defensive cornerstone of a team, that was my draft. So again, this could change for somebody like an S rank or something like that, or a high A rank. This is just how I felt when I played it. I felt I had a big problem with it. I felt like I, couldn't switch this Pokemon in. I couldn't Wish Pass effectively. I couldn't use Wish Teleport effectively, which was one of the reasons that I did draft it. It made me feel like just bringing Unaware was the only thing that was good, or setup. That's pretty much all I got to say. I will say all of its stuff screams Tier 1 on paper, and this could all be different, maybe per draft rules, like only drafting 1 Tier 1 Mon versus 2 Tier 1 Mons. So I think the tier list should be different per that. But yeah, that's just what I think about Clefable. I felt like it's really rarely been drafted, yet its fairy peers have been drafted 10 times more. Even Enamorous has been drafted half as many times as it now, so 1 time. But actually, Enamorous was drafted by 2 people, right? Enamorous. Nope. Only drafted by 1. I feel like Enamorous was drafted by 2 people to begin with. But right now, currently 1. Anyways. Getting back to the sheet here. Or the talking points. Next, we have Tier 1 Necrozma. So, this is no nag on flow or anything like that. But just from my perspective, it feels like Necrozma has been hard to build. And watching his games made me feel a lot like when I was watching Hayden's games with Necrozma, whereas the set is almost predictable. Not the set, the exact set, but what Necrozma wants to do. We've seen a few people do that to Flow already by neutralizing it, by trying to use Toxic or trying to neutralize it. So I'm curious to know what Flo thinks, since he's the one building it. I'm curious to know what the players playing against it thinks, because I haven't played against it, and I don't think I've drafted it either. So, again, these can change per how many tier 1s you can draft in a draft, but I feel like it's a high tier 2 Pokemon. I definitely was on the idea that it's a tier 1 Pokemon based on what it has. Um, but it feels like it's not. It's one of those ones where it says everything's good on paper, but it's not performing or not doing as well as what we would have wanted it to. So curious to know. Let me know. Next one is Cyclizar. I think this is pretty overall thought by most players here is that Cyclizar is a tier 2 Pokemon. Its stats are okay, its typing's okay. The normal typing, I mean, helps with switching into ghost type attacks, but it does add a fighting type weakness. Has decent ability in Regenerator and Shed Skin. Regenerator obviously being the good one, but its defensive stats aren't that great, so it having Regenerator and Rapid Spin and Knockoff kind of make it less effective to draw it like that. It's got decent speed. I think it was 121 or 125. Yeah, 121. Yeah, I think it's a solid tier 2 Pokemon. It'd be nice to have another Dragon Pokemon in tier 2. Yeah. Next one is number 4, tier 1, Basculegion Male. So this one is more of a question mark. I feel like it was neutered, rightfully so, by taking away last respects. Pretty strong move, pretty broken move, especially with adaptability. And so it was neutered, but we kept it in tier 1. Yeah, we put Basculegion F in tier 2. Obviously, Basculegion Male gets wave 100% accuracy, 120 move, wave crash, but takes recoil. Basculegion F gets Hydro Pump and Shadow Ball though, with no recoil problems and adaptability. So I'm curious why the male one is. So yeah, we look at Basculegion F here. I mean, it's got this. It's 2 less, or is it 12 less? It's 12 less. 10 less, right? 112, 100. So 12 less attack in its rightful attack. So special attack is 100. Basculegion's physical attack is 112. So it is 12 less, but is that enough for a whole tier? I'm not sure. I think it's still tier 2 with Basculegion female. Basculegion female, in my opinion, is I would like Basculegion female more than male, just because its effective stat is special attack with Shadow Ball, but it's still got 92 attack and adaptability, so you can still run Aqua Jet, Wave Crash, Psychic Fangs, and be effective. So the other thing that I don't like about the Basculegion male, or Basculegions in general being in tier 1, is they don't get anything the good Basculins have, like, you know, Flip Turn, Final Gambit. They don't get Toxic. They don't get anything like that. So you know, like, you could run a really cool like Toxic Hex set or something like that. It doesn't get that though. So yeah. To the next one though, we have Primarina. So I should have said this at the beginning, but I was not a part of any tier changes for the last like couple of years. I didn't see them. I didn't comment on them. Nothing like that. So I had no idea what the discussion was around it. But very confused by the move to tier 1 for Primarina. Obviously, it's a very strong Pokemon. It destroyed an entire draft. It just was so strong in that commander draft. It had nothing that could deal with it. But at tier 1, I feel like you have all these Pokemon besides maybe one being Weavile that outclass it. And Weavile can outclass it because it's got Sword Stance, and Stab Knockoff, Ice Shard as well. You got Finny in there, the other Water Fairy, and although Finny is not nearly as strong, it's still really strong. It has the same typing, a better ability, better moveset, minus the Flip Turn. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't I don't personally understand the tier 1. Maybe it's, again, because you can only have one, or you can have 2 tier 1s. Maybe that changes it a lot. But I think it's a solid tier 2 pick. I think that would be a great spot for it. Yeah. Again, I'm gonna write out more things for those of you who don't want to hear me ramble and better time reading. But for our next one, we have Scovillane. This one's gonna be short and sweet. It's got ass cheek moveset. It's just fire and grass with like stomping tantrum. Can be physical or special. It's chlorophyll user, gets completely outclassed by Venusaur as the other chlorophyll user, and the other hidden boss chlorophyll user that is much too low. It's not been used, but it will be. I guarantee it will be used. But it's this guy right here, Victory Bell. It gets outshined by that, in my opinion. Sure, it gets stab fire moves, but I mean, Weather Ball does fine. Venusaur gets a plethora of moves to use: Earth Power, Weather Ball, Sludge Bomb, Giga Drain, Leaf Storm, Sludge Wave, Knockoff, Earthquake. It can be physical, special. Yeah, it completely outshines it. Venusaur does. Yeah. If it was a chlorophyll user and just fire, then I would maybe argue it, because then it could just resist fire moves in the sun, which would be kind of good. But completely outshined. And I think Victory Bell is also better than it, because Victory Bell almost does the same thing as Venusaur, but it has Shrink Sap as well. So that's my short and sweet thing for Scovillane here. Definitely not tier 2 worthy in my eyes. I wouldn't draft it as tier 2, especially with Venusaur and stuff there, or other grass types, because without chlorophyll, it's kind of poo. But Rotom Heat, this was one that I'll try and be short on in the discussion here, on the video. I'll write more about it, but this one took me drafting it and playing it to feel the way I feel about it. It's more or less because it's in the same tier as Rotom Wash. I really don't like them being in the same tier. When I'm building and prepping with Rotom Heat, I was very much suffocated by every team having Stealth Rock users, or more than one, and needing to build heavy duty boots. It took away my ability to build Specs, Scarf, Rocky Helmet, which there was so many games I wanted to run Rocky Helmet with it, but I just couldn't take the chance that they would have rocks up, and I would obviously KO my own Pokemon via rocks. So that's my short explanation for it. I just don't like it being alongside Rotom Wash. I feel like Rotom Wash is a lot better than it, and it does the same thing, just different typing. So for my next one, it's going to be Killaw. This one I have no idea why it is in tier 2. Please let me know what discussion was around it. It does have some funky things that it can do, I guess, but as a electric flying, you have Zapdos only one tier ahead of it, and Zapdos is an absolute monster of a Pokemon. It has more special attack, less speed, way bulkier, has access to better moves like Heat Wave. Does have screens. Ooh. But yeah, does have better moves than it. Obviously, it doesn't have Volt Absorb, which Killaw has, but I mean, it's basically just an attacker. The interesting part that it here has, obviously, you can do some maybe interesting things with Tailwind, Wind Power, but it does have Weather Ball, which I thought was kind of interesting. So it would be good on weather teams. But yeah, I don't know about one tier away from Zapdos. Obviously, it's good because it has Volt Absorb, but I think that would make it a good tier 3. I just don't see this Pokemon ever being drafted in tier 2, ever. I just don't think it does anything that good. Somebody would be like, oh, I'm gonna draft this tier 2 Pokemon, Electric Flying, because Voltorb, you know? It's almost like a Pokemon you splash onto your team when you need something, not something that you go for in tier 2. But yeah, I could be wrong. Maybe there's some that I'm not seeing, because I've been wrong about a few things. I'm about to be wrong on the next Pokemon, because after I was reviewing my notes, I'm wrong, probably. So our next Pokemon though is tier 3 Tatsugiri. So when I was looking at my notes, most of my notes about Tatsugiri are about its shallow move pool. But what I did not see or failed to see was the fact that what I did not see is the combination of things. Okay, Water Dragon, great typing, has really high special attack, or pretty high special attack. Okay, 339 in Timid, which is pretty good. The ability to Nasty Plot, that's scary. Has Rapid Sin, and Rapid Sin is very viable on it because it's typing and Storm Drain. So switching into water attacks make it very, very viable to use Rapid Spin. But yeah, Draco Meteor, Nasty Plot, Hydro Pump, Nasty Plot. It does have Taunt, so it can be a lead with Rapid Spin. Outside of that, though, it's got nothing. I mean, it's poo moveset. Can't learn Hidden Power, has counter. Chilling Water, you could run a defensive set, like I said. But I feel like it's really, you could almost look at the team preview and know what type of Pokemon it is, you know? Could be tier 4, highly doubt it. Yeah. That's my short and sweet thing about Tatsugiri. That is my short and sweet explanation of Pokemon that I think might have been too high. There's more Pokemon, of course. I'm not gonna, list the whole crap load of them or anything like that. These are just the ones that I, might argue more for. There's a couple hidden ones that I want to leave for the tier change discussion. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. All levels of player, please feel welcome to comment on it and let us know your opinion as well. Yeah, and we're gonna move on to the really fun one. Were these Pokemon too low? And I'll see you guys on that. So, or the really fun one now. Were these Pokemon too low? Now, I said in the other one, there's Pokemon that I won't die on a hill for. Most of them, I'm not going to die on a hill for. I will die on a hill for a fair bit of these ones. Again, I'm wrong. Everybody's wrong at some point. Obviously, feel free to voice your opinion. That's what we should do. But yeah, so I'm gonna start with I forgot the tiers on the side here, but tier 1 Ursaluna. Now, I want to say right away that I think it's our tier list is still very balanced. There's I don't think anybody did a bad job or anything like this, and I think it's totally okay to test Pokemon and see how they do. That's why I haven't been annoyed about Ursaluna being in tier 1, because it's fine. We should test things, right, and see how they do. And that'll help us know if we can complex ban or need to full ban. But for Ursaluna, I think this Pokemon was just way too much of a monster. Although I will say, I think the only thing that really tips it over for me is Guts. It made the Pokemon, how do you say it? Very unmanageable. There was very few things that you could do to deal with this Pokemon. Even with my team being so bulky, there was really not a whole lot I could do. And I feel like that's going to be the case for a lot of people, unless they have some really niche Pokemon or really niche things, which of course, yeah, you can draft those niche Pokemon, but it's the same discussion that we had about, what Pokemon is that? Dracovish. When switching's become like few and far when there really isn't any switch-ins and they can just click one attack, and it's like very few Pokemon can counter it, and you can't counter it with movesets. I feel like that's where you just start tipping over the edge of unbalanced, and that's what I feel about Guts Ursaluna. The combination of Guts and its stats. So I'm gonna bring you guys over here to its stats. Just give me 1 second here. So coming over to its stats here. 130 base HP. That is a monstrous HP stat. That is huge. For an offensive Pokemon, that is insanely high. With decent typing, you put 250 464 HP. On top of that, it has pretty viable defenses. 105, that's more than viable. 80 is viable. 105 is good. And then it has 140 attack. That is insane. That's no nature. 379. That's crazy. Adamant 416. So being ground and normal type and having Guts, it's got Stab Facade and Stab Earthquake. Two of the highest base moves in the game besides like Explosion and shit like that. Facade I'm basing at 140 because that's when everybody runs Facade. That's crazy. So as an example, when I had to prep for this thing, there was nothing that I had to switch into this. Nothing could switch into it. Because its coverage is really good, and its stab moves. So, for example, Mega Aggron was still 2-shot by Earthquake at 668 defense. 668 defense, I was 2-shot. My counter didn't even OHKO it. That was crazy. So, but yeah, Facade. Anyways, Tangela, 361 defense, 334, 333 HP, Eviolite. So 361 times 1.5. $361 times 1. 361. Jesus. 361 times 1.5. 541 defense. Facade, I couldn't even switch into it. That to me is like when you become unbalanced. Like that's Dracovish levels. Strongjaw and Fishious Rend. The difference with our Dracovish is you could at least burn it. You can't even burn this. So it becomes, you start lowering the amount of things that can deal with this Pokemon when you give it Guts, and all these stats, right? So there is Pokemon, is it Poltika? No, God, I never draft the fucking Pokemon. It's that pumpkin. I can't even think of its name. I'm gonna have to go to the tier list here. Gourgeist. I was thinking Poltergeist. Yeah, Gourgeist does really good against it. Thankfully, there's a lot of Gourgeist to draft. But other than that, if you don't have those, donezo. There was nothing that I had to switch into this, and that's going to be the case for most teams here. So I do think, though, a complex ban, if you ban Guts, I think that makes this Pokemon a really strong tier 1, but not like you can't deal with it at all. At least at no Guts, you can manage its attack. It's got high attack, but it's like you got Kartana and stuff like that with high attack. But you can burn it, which is really good, right? Yeah. I'll write more about it, but that is how I feel about Ursaluna. I think it is too much to prep for. Too much to prep for and still not have nothing to deal with it. So, and that's not even counting, counter prep for it, right? You prep for it, they counter prep, like Calvin did with versus Jason, right? Yeah, so moving on though, we're gonna go to Satitan. I am going to be very short with this. Absolutely not a tier 3 Pokemon. Completely ridiculous Pokemon at tier 3. Again, not mad at anybody or anything like that, but like, holy shit, that Pokemon is ridiculous at tier 3. Obviously it was hard to see it all in perspective. I just saw it right away because it was my first match. But the snow boost with the defense, so Titan's HP, okay defenses. I mean, not okay. I think it's 65 or something like that. But it's HP. I think it's 541 without any investment. I mean, we can go to it. $481. Sorry, 544 fully invested. Okay, so yeah, just anyways, I'm gonna restart there. The snow buff with the +1 defense, players running screens or Aurora Veil, this Pokemon having Belly Drum and Ice Shard, like, they're just nothing. There's nothing for it. If they set up screens, you're donezo. You got to play against the screens, right? With the +1 defense and the snow and the new move Chilly Reception, there's just too many buffs that help this Pokemon specifically. We're gonna go to the other Slush Rush users, like Arctozolt in tier 2 and the other Snow Setter, Abomasnow, okay? But Arctozolt went to tier 2, and Arctozolt has worse stats than it, and it doesn't have Ice Shard. So, Arctozolt. $90 HP to 170 HP. 100 attack to 113 attack. Now, its defenses and special attack is better, 90 versus 65. And so Titan can't run special attack because it's 45. But it's only got base 55 speed, right? So a lot of Pokemon will outspeed it with Scarf. A lot, right? So Titan's on that line where it's like not quite a lot of Pokemon will outspeed it if it's Jolly. But it can still be outsped, which we've seen. Most people do to deal with it. Scarf their fast Pokemon, right? The Cinderace and the Cobalion, right? But my issue is like we haven't even seen this Pokemon with Aurora Veil, which is a lot easier to set up. You know, just with Belly Drum and Ice Shard, yeah, that's the other thing. Arctozolt doesn't have Ice Shard, so that's the other thing. So Titan gets the Belly Drum up, he can still outspeed you with Ice Shard and kill you because the +4 or +6, whatever. It's also just got crazy move pool. I mean, it covers basically anything you want. Earthquake, Heavy Slam, big Pokemon, Superpower, Body Press, Ice Shard, Play Rough, Liquidation. Way too much for tier 3. Obviously, like, this comes with drafting a Snow Setter, but like the amount that you get for drafting a Snow Setter and this Pokemon is like insane. You got 2 Pokemon and every person that plays against it is gonna have to prepare for it, like hard prepared for it. So that's my thoughts. I almost think that Satitan could move up to tier 1. I don't think it'd be bad for it at tier 1. That's how crazy I think Satitan is. Yeah, you know, I lost to it, so maybe I'm just like woo about Satitan, but like really, like let's look at the buffs that the Ice type Pokemon got. It's just Ice type, so it doesn't have extra weaknesses like Arctozolt has, right? It has Ice Shard, so even if you did Scarf and outspeed it, it could still kill you if you resisted and you had chip, because it has Ice Shard. So it is guaranteed a Belly Drum, basically. 99% of the time it's going to be guaranteed a Belly Drum in the snow because of the defense buff. Or a Chilly Reception because it's a free teleport into it, right? And so you Chilly Reception, set the snow, you give it a defense boost, and then it can set up Belly Drum because it has 544 HP or 480 HP. And that's not to say you can't just spread the EVs into defense to make sure you survive, whatever it is that you need to survive. I just think this Pokemon is insanely good. I think it would be okay at tier 1. Yeah, I'm happy at tier 1. But I'd agree with tier 2. Definitely not tier 3. So, but I think it's tier 1 talkable. So, yeah. I'm not gonna get hung up on this Titan. Again, not mad at anybody or anything like that. It's hard to see these things in a wide array when there were so many little things that added up to make this Pokemon ridiculous. But yeah, crazy Pokemon. The two players that have it should have a, you know, not free games, but like, I mean, you see Jared, he built the same thing like 3-4 games in a row, and it was completely fine because that's how strong Titan is. So, but moving on to the next one. So, Mega Aggron. Now, I was kind of getting into this when I was figuring out drafts. I really wanted to try something different, but I ended up just going back to Mega Aggron. I just think it's too good at, like, how do I word this? I think it's good enough for tier 1 and annoyingly good in tier 2 that you shouldn't pass it up. If that makes sense. Like, I hate how good it is because every time it comes to my turn in the draft and I see that thing available at tier 2, I don't know why I wouldn't draft it. It's a solo steel type with filter, can't be poisoned, has setup, has good move pool, filter, has stealth rocks, has roar. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely good enough for tier 1, and I'm surprised it's been staying in tier 2 for so long. Right? Yeah, that's my short little spiel about Mega Aggron. For the next one, this one is kind of a sneaky one. And it's Mind Shell. I feel like Mind Shell flies under the radar every single season. I just want to show you guys its stats. So, bring you guys here. And Shell. So, we have 125 attack. That's 349. Not adamant. Not adamant. That's high as fuck. So then we can go timid. And it's 339 speed. That's a good speed tier. 105. On top of that, it has regenerator. Meaning you can run life orb spam, or you can just attack shit with Rocky Helmet. It doesn't even matter because you just U-turn out after, or you switch out after. I think this Pokemon, its move pool is good too. Fake Out, Blaze Kick, Drain Punch, Close Combat, High Jump Kick for some of you guys, Knockoff, U-turn, Taunt, Toxic, Swords Dance, Stone Edge. Yeah, this Pokemon flies under the radar every time. Every time. I think it's just because so many fighting types are just available in lower tiers. And there's things in the tier that it's in that aren't available in the lower tiers. But for the things that this Pokemon has, not to mention, you can run this as special attack, okay? Like, there was times where you could, you know, be versing something with a ×4 weakness, right? And you don't have the effective move here, like Ice Punch or something like that. You can run Hidden Power Ice. You can go like this. Run Hasty or something like that, right? 226 special attacks, pretty good at base. If you're versing like a Gliscor, Noivern or something like that, and you Hidden Power Ice, like, Incha. Hidden Power Ice. So no EVs in it. The score. Swords Dance. That's with 244 special defense on Gliscor. Obviously, that's not plus nature, but 45 to 54 from a fighting Pokemon? No EVs in it? Throw some EVs in there? That's guaranteed to hit KO. I would really challenge a lot of people to think about this one. I mean, I like it in tier 3. I mean, I don't draft it all the time, but I think it's definitely a very good Pokemon in tier 3. And I think, if anything, we don't move it up. I at least hope people's eyes are open to how good this Pokemon is. Yeah, how versatile this Pokemon can be, especially with Regenerator. So, yeah, that's my Mind Show speech. Next one is I already know I'm gonna get shit for this. You know, my subs and screens thing is like, obviously I'm kind of serious about it, but it's a little bit of a meme for me too, right? I need to learn how to play against those things, but at the same time, come on, fucking screens are retarded, man. 50% damage. Anyways, so Sableye though this season, I don't think a lot of people know, but it got access to both screens. It didn't have screens before, or it didn't have both screens. So, being a dark type with Prankster and having access to screens and recover and Will-O-Wisp and taunt, I think it has other things too. Go to Sableye here. Sableye. Disable. X. Nasty Plot. I don't know. Sableye seems like a pretty dang good pick now. Tier 4, you could argue that it stays in tier 4 because its stats are kind of ass cheeks, but having both screens now? Well, what's Morgrem's stats? I think we should look at that. $65 to $50, $45 to $75. Okay, that's a pretty big difference. $55 to $65. Eh. Guess they're kind of similar, except Morgrem gets Eviolite and is base faster. I guess you could say Sableye could stay in tier 4, but I don't know. I think it does a few things better than Morgrem does. You know, it's got Taunt, Nasty Plot, X. Morgrem also doesn't have Knockoff, so, but it has T-Wave, whereas Sableye has Will-O-Wisp. Yeah. I just always hated good screens user. Being so easily pickable at tier 4. So you usually can pick like 3 tier 4s or some shit, right? But yeah, I don't know if a lot of people knew that. I'll shoot myself in the foot. Won't change tiers and everybody's going to draft Sableye. But yeah. For my next one is Piloswine. Now, this one, when I was looking through and I saw Piloswine, I'm like, okay, sure. It's been in that tier for a long time. It's a good pick at tier 4. And one of my points when I was in the tier change before was keeping some gems in their tiers and not just moving them up purely because their usage or something like that. As long as they're not breaking that tier, I think it's good to keep a few gems in the tier. Notably was I think I wanted Meowstic M up, but I didn't want it too far up because it was still a good pick at a low tier. But yeah, Piloswine. Piloswine sees use every single draft. It gets a lot of mileage. It's also been very reliable for every team that's drafted it. I think it's used in more than 50% of the games that it's available to use in the draft. It's access to Eviolite, high HP, high attack. You can run full attack. It's got Ice Shard, it's got Earthquake, it's got Stealth Rocks, it's got Thick Fat. I think this is tier 3 viable now. I think we're getting in the realm now where Piloswine is too good of a Pokemon on tier 3. It provides so much for the person drafting it, and it just outshines basically everything in the tier. There's a few Pokemon that I might say are similar to it, but it's basically one of the best Pokemon in the tier. Of course, you have things like Serena and Thwackey, which I wish Thwackey never moved up, but yeah, I think Piloswine is in the talks. The fact that it gets Ice Shard, it's Ice Ground, with Thick Fat, has Stealth Rocks, Eviolite, high HP. I think it's just a very, very durable Pokemon, has seen so much use, worthy of T3. For my next one is Hitmontop. Hitmontop is in tier 4, was in tier 3, I believe. Hitmontop. Yeah, so we go to Hitmontop here. When I had to prep for this thing, I was very freaking annoyed that this was at tier 4, with the amount of things that it can do. It's insanely fucking bulky, has really good abilities. It's really hard to prep for all of its abilities, because if you prep for Intimidate, then it's fucking killing you with Technician, Triple Axle, Bullet Punch bullshit. If you don't build for Intimidate, then it's just like bulky, it keeps rapid spinning, you never kill it, does a huge amount of damage, has Mach Punch. Like, a really annoying Pokemon. I definitely do not like the T4. I think it just provides so much for your team. Like, it and Piloswine are the same, in my opinion. Very, very similar. They've been very durable. They've been very reliable for every team that's drafted them. And I think Hitmontop completely outclasses Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. Even with Hitmonchan getting the Punching Glove buff, just Hitmontop just is way more useful. It can do so many more things, while also being strong. Definitely think it should be back at T3 if that's where it was before. I feel like it was. I definitely didn't think it was in the same tier as the other Hitmon Pokemon. For my next Pokemon, this one was kind of like sitting under the radar. Bellib. So just solo electric type. Pretty bulky, really high HP. 109. So I'll bring you guys to the picture here. So we have 109 HP, 91 defense, 83 SPDF. So pretty good defenses, allowing you to run in both defensive if you wanted to, or full HP at 422, and then pick and choose, right? Has static, which is really annoying. It really stops people from just like freewheeling attack. But also has a good ability in Damp and Electromorphosis. So Electromorphosis, allowing it to fire back annoyingly hard, has access to pretty good move pool. Sucker Punch, has good healing with Slack Up, which is awesome. Has dual screens, Chilling Water, Discharge, and Volt Switch. Slow Volt Switch usually. That's bulky. That you don't want to attack because static. That's pretty damn good to me. Not tier 5, in my opinion. I think that's pretty good Pokemon. Obviously, it was only drafted by one person, I think, right? Or 2 people? I think Josh, maybe, and Zeb. But, damn, I think that got overlooked a little bit, like, by players drafting it. Not in the tier. I mean, you could keep it there, but I think it's definitely good enough for tier 4. Yeah, damn, that's a good Pokemon. So for the second to last Pokemon, this one was crazy to me. I mean, if I didn't botch my entire draft because Sneasler, I would have drafted this Pokemon. This was my number 1 pick at tier 5. I think that's what it was, right? Yeah. Bringing out the picture. That's right here. Ridiculous. Being able to resist immune ghost type attacks. It's neutral to fighting type now, but you lose that fighting type weakness from the poison type because it's poison normal. But man, this Pokemon has so much it can do. Like, it has decent enough special defense as we've seen to run it SPDF wise. Has good enough speed that you could be a really annoying defensive speedy Pokemon, but it can also be an attacker. It's got Unburden, right? So you can run some really crazy shit. It's got 3 great abilities, okay? It's got Unburden, Poison Touch, and Prankster. All 3 abilities allow it to be ran completely different, okay? You could run it defensively, you could run it utility, you could run it setup. It's got Nasty Plot, man. Nasty Plot. Like, I will say though, it doesn't have a good it doesn't have any special attacking normal move. But anyways, it has Prankster Parting Shot, which is really fucking good. I think that is just, it's almost fucking broken. Prankster Parting Shot. So you can be a kind of a like Grimmsnarl. I'm happy with the Grimmsnarl move to tier 1 because Prankster with Grimmsnarl, because Grimmsnarl's one thing is that it was not that bulky, and it couldn't switch out, or it had to hard switch out. But now you give it Parting Shot, like you allow it to be bulky with the Parting Shot, and you're giving it the ability to switch out. Freaking retarded. Graf does this. You can be bulky and have Parting Shot, and you have Prankster, so you don't even have to run speed if you don't want to. Or you could run Poison Touch, and since you're fast enough, you could still run Parting Shot. Definitely not tier 5. I really want this thing to move up. I think it's very good. I think Chris has used it really well. I can't remember the other person who has it, but I don't think they've used it. It's a shame because this is a really, really good Pokemon. Yeah, not much to say. Really good Pokemon. Definitely should be tier 5, especially with its speed. 350 max, I think it was. Yeah, crazy. Now this one, I am so happy nobody drafted this Pokemon, or it's drafted by one person right now, I think. Drafted by one person right now. Holy shit, this thing became really scary with the Ursaluna Pokemon release. Giving Ursaring the ability to have Guts and Eviolite, really, really fucking scary. Or Eviolite setup, like, holy shit. Yeah, not much to say. This Pokemon is absolutely fucking terrifying. We saw Hayden ravage a team with Trick. I think he lost the game, but he almost came back with Trick Room Ursaring. Like, yeah, crazy. What is it? He's barely less attack than Ursaluna, I think. Yeah. So Ursaring is at 130 and Ursaluna is at 140. So not much less attack. Has the same abilities. Obviously not as bulky, but gets Eviolite now. So could be potentially bulkier, depending. So, absolutely, yeah, crazy Pokemon. Especially there's been a lot of people that have been planning to use Trick Room. I'm surprised that this wasn't a Pokemon that they put in there. Obviously, if you have Ursaluna, you're not gonna have Ursaring. But yeah, for anybody thinking about a Trick Room, I mean that Pokemon Ursaring is just crazy. Crazy. 90 HP, which is pretty good. 75 defenses plus Eviolite. I mean, that is freaking terrifying. I mean, Quick Feet, you could just run Quick Feet, like Quick Feet Facade, Eviolite, or I don't know. Fuck, man. Just, yeah, he became way scarier with the ability to run Eviolite, in my opinion. Just like the new fucking thing, Duraludon potentially being able to use Eviolite is going to make it a lot scarier. So, but yeah, I think that is it. Yeah, that'll end it for were these mons too high or too low. Again, all levels of players, please let me know what you think. I'd love to hear everybody's opinion. As much discussion around it as possible would be amazing. So hope you guys enjoyed these two. Were these too high? Were these too low? And I hope it does spark some discussion. Again, I will write everything out for those of you who don't want to hear me ramble. But yeah, just enjoy. Bringing me to my other topic that will be kind of hard to put into words. It's more of something that I challenge people to think about, because I don't know myself, but I noticed this has been common. Maybe not common, but I've seen a trend of this happening, and these teams being successful despite having this thing that I'm going to talk about. So we go to, I'm already on it. If we go to Christian's team here, now I don't have a name for this, but where I first noticed this was Jonas, and in this season it's Christian. There's other players that have done this and that are doing this, whether it's like on purpose or by accident. I'm just gonna call it the Christian theory for now. I'm not really sure why this seems to work, but anyways, so okay, this is Christian's team right now. He made a few changes, so we'll go to those changes. I think they're right here. Yeah, he did have Meowstick and Golurk. So he had so he had he also had 2 more ghost weaknesses. So he had like 4 ghost weaknesses, right? Now, obviously that's excessive, but what the point that I want to make is like, is it really excessive though? Because like obviously he's not going to bring those 4 ghosts to a game, or obviously he's not going to bring 2 ghosts to a game unless the matchup calls for it. But what makes it interesting to think about is it potentially could seem easy to prep for this, but when you have 4 different ghosts that do 4 different things, that's where I feel like might slip over people's heads. Is like, yeah, you can throw on, Shadow Ball and you can catch all 4 of them, but it's like, what if one Spadef? What if Dusclops is set up, which we've seen? What if, it's a Banded Sucker Punch Spiritomb or Choice Scarf Golurk, and then they knock out your one check, potentially, for these 4 things that you thought would be doable, right? Now again, I don't really have the right words to explain what I'm noticing, so I challenge you guys to maybe help or what you guys think about this. But this is not the first time that I've noticed this in like a big perspective. Christian was getting a lot of obviously fun flack for it. Nobody was actually being mean to him, but he got some flack for it. But yes, he made the trades. He's still keeping 2 ghosts. Obviously, one's not weak to ghost, but he did keep those. Does it say when? It doesn't say when he traded them. But anyways, he was still very successful, and his team isn't like anything like what people thought. It didn't look that crazy, but all of a sudden it just came out the gate really crazy. He's taking teams, he's beating people that players might not think that he had the caliber to beat. But anyways, so that's my thing with Christian's team. Like, so he had these 4 ghosts, but people might think it's easy to prep for, and they might prep for it in their head and be like, oh yeah, I got it, no problem. And then all of a sudden it comes out the gate and they're like, oh fuck, I didn't prep for that exactly, right? The other example that I want to use for this is back in the Commander draft. So this is where I first noticed it. Now it was like kind of a thought, so I didn't really dive into it too much. But I did dive into it a lot more once I noticed Christian did the exact same thing. Whether it's by accident or on purpose, I don't know, but both were successful. So that's starting to create a pattern for me. So we'll go over to Jonas's team here. Now, if you guys can notice right away, excellent. But if not, so you notice he has ground weakness on Cobalion, ground weakness on Arctozolt, ground weakness on Lantern, ground weakness on Aurorus. That's a lot of ground weaknesses, and Earthquake and ground moves are very common. On top of that, I think he had another one. I think it was, rock, and rock weaknesses. So, but the thing is, what's, like, again, this is just like a lot of word vomit because I can't really put into words what I'm trying to get at here, just the pattern of this being successful for some reason. You see he has that huge ground weakness, but then he has this massive defensive ground, like this defensive mon that resists ground in Serena, and Serena can do a lot of things as well, right? You know, she can come in for free on those ground moves that people think they're gonna just click for free because it can cover so many, right? And then Serena's gonna come in, get U-turn, create momentum, or click rapid spin, get those rocks away, or, you know, just fire off a power whip or something like that, or triple axle, right? And then you have this other defensive Pokemon that has Regenerator that can switch into these as like a neutral blanket, right? And create this momentum of switching into that ground move, eating that ground move or that rock move, and switch into it no problem, get a wish off, pass into something that they want, or, you know, knock off or whatever the case is, right? Again, I can't really put into words exactly why this is successful, or like even exactly what I'm trying to make of it, but like I just wanted to point it out and maybe challenge others to think about it and see maybe why this happens or why it works. But yeah, this is not the only two teams that have done this, so I'm not going to point out all the teams because I don't know if this is a strategy of people or not, but these are the two teams I notice it with the most. And you know what's funny about this is you got Jonas way up here on the ranks, and you got Christian down here on the ranks, and it's polar opposite, but they both did the same thing. Now it's different seasons apart, but they both got success off of it. So yeah, a fun topic that I thought would be challenging for players to think about and maybe think why this is successful. Now obviously you can just break this down to being Jonas a good player, but like it's kind of a scapegoat to say that, right? That's a lot of ground weaknesses and a lot of rock weaknesses, and those are two very common move types that are on every Pokemon. So, and what's to say it doesn't, you know, you get like one ground Pokemon to just sweep his whole team? That never happened, right? And it's the same with Christian. Never happened. So why didn't it happen is my question, right? How come it didn't happen? You know, were people, you know, too scared to maybe make the prediction on the, you know, clicking the Earthquake and Serena coming in? Or are they too scared to make the prediction that Serena's coming in and to make the double prediction, right? I don't know. So I challenge you guys, you know, especially those top players and those guys that theorize a lot. I would really like to know what your guys' thoughts are on that. So yeah, the Christian theory, hopefully I'll have a name for it later, but that's what I notice it as now. So all right, similar to the topic that we were just talking about with the Christian theory, it's going to be about teams. Now, I'm going to start off by saying Michael's team is like one of my favorite teams. But this is what I want to talk about on this, okay? It's like when you draft a really, really good team, like a core of Pokemon that are so good that there's no reason not to bring them every single match. I actually feel like that hinders the player. Now, again, you can always chalk these things up to being, well, if Jonas had this team or if Calvin had this team, you know, it would be this successful. I think that's a scapegoat to say things like that, because you never know how they're going to perform, right? But I really do think when you draft a team, so like Michael's, okay, it's one of my favorite teams because its core is so good. There's no reason for Michael to not bring this core every single game, and that core is Gliscor, Swampert, and Alola Muck. They just cover each other really, really well. Now they all can be burnt. That's like their biggest hindrance, but well, except Gliscor, I guess Toxic Kill. But anyways, they all cover each other so well that they can just come to every single game. Swampert can set up rocks, or Gliscor can set up rocks. That allows one or the other to have a different moveset, or both have rocks to guarantee rocks. You know, Muck's only weak to ground. Gliscor's immune to ground. Swampert can easily eat ground moves, right? Swampert weak to grass moves. I don't know if Muck resists grass moves, but anyways, Muck can switch into them really easy, and Gliscor can switch into them really easy because Gliscor is neutral since the flying, right? You know, Gliscor's got U-turn, Swampert's got flip turn, Muck can poison people. It's like they synergize super, super good. But I truly do feel that hinders you. And the reason that is because you know that person is going to be bringing those 3 Pokemon, right? And those 3 sets are generally going to be the same. They'll switch up a little bit here and there, but again, you could chalk this up to saying, well, a good player would mix up their moveset. Sure, they would. But when you have consistency put in front of you of something working, why not use it? And I think that's the case with people when they draft these things that are super consistent. They bring them as the consistent set, right? So anyways, so you look at his team, it's just like those 3 Pokemon are going to come every single game. One, you know, Gliscor or Swampert's going to have rocks. If Swampert has rocks, maybe Gliscor's set up. If Gliscor has rocks, maybe Swampert's set up, or he's like 4 attacks or something like that, right? It's like that's how you can easily break down what the Pokemon is, and that's why I think that hinders the player. Now, to put that side by side on a team that I think might not look as good on paper, but performs well, I think it was... What team? Oh, I should have had this set up beforehand. I wanted to find a team that didn't have like the greatest core. Okay. Flo's team. I'm going to use this team as an example. I'm not saying Flo's team is bad or anything like that. I'm just saying the cores are unconventional. Yeah, he's got Florges. Yeah, he's got Kamala and Piloswine, right? But like, you can really mix up those Pokemon, right? Piloswine can have full attack EVs, or he can have full defensive EVs or Spadef EVs. Komala can be, you know, attacks. I think Kamala doesn't have Stealth Rocks, but Kamala has Rapid Spin and U-Turn. Kamala has Wish. Florges has Wish. Florges has Calm Mind. These 3 Pokemon are kind of an unconventional core, right? Yeah, Kamala's weak to fighting. Florges can deal with fighting. Piloswine's weak to fighting. Florges can deal with fighting. But you notice these 2 are both weak to fighting, right? So, on paper, the Muck, the Swampert, and the Gliscor just look way better. But overall, this team has performed better. Yes, it might be driven by a player that's ranked higher, but it's still working with an unconventional core. Sorry, I know this is like a little bit like word vomity because I have trouble explaining these things when I see them, but I just noticed this being a thing when teams, and this is something I've noticed with myself, when I draft a really good core and I find myself with no reason to not bring that core, I find it hinders myself because it can make myself predictable, right? Now, obviously, I can switch up the movesets, but I can only switch them up so much, right? Before people just do their research, right? On what's going to be good to bring to their match. So, Flo's is a good example. I'd like to go to Reggie's team because I think Reggie's team was kind of weird. Matt's team kind of has one too, right? Like he got Miltank. He's used Electrode a lot to switch into things. Crobat can be defensive or offensive. He doesn't really have that defensive core, right? But it's working. And again, you can just say this is geared by a player that's essentially ranked higher, right? But like, I just feel like that's not the only thing to it. Because the player's ranked higher, he can use any team. And sure, the higher ranked player could probably use a lot of different teams, whereas a lower ranked player probably has to kind of stick to what they're good at, right? But when you have a core that's this good, this insanely good, it should be good no matter who the player is, right? But we can see the difference here. 6-1 versus 1-6, right? despite the core being so drastically different, and on paper may look, not drastically worse, but worse on paper, right? I think, like, you can take the small things into consideration here. Got thick fat. He's weak to fire. Can switch in with thick fat, right? Crobat's weak to electric. He's super resistant to electric. Crobat's weak to ice. Cleavor can switch into ice. It's these weird, unconventional defensive options that these good players are picking that make me think that if you draft a core that's not quite S tier, that it's going to allow you to maybe get those creative juices in your head going a little bit more than you would if you were just with Gliscor, Swampert, and Muck. Now, I'm not saying Michael did this by any means, but maybe just those players, they just kind of like they go into autopilot and they coast with those really good S tier cores on paper, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was something interesting to think about. That's kind of what I wanted to do with this video, is get more things talked about and players thinking, and I was really happy to see so many players draft differently than what they normally do. Like Flo and Jonas, they drafted a lot of new Pokemon. I don't know if Flo drafted a lot. Let me see. Where is he? Yeah, he did. He drafted two new Pokemon, and he drafted Necrozma. Which is, we don't see a whole lot of Necrozma, and this was when Necrozma was put into tier 1. So I was really happy to see even S tier players or A rank players draft differently. Obviously, there's a thing with bringing teams that kind of look unconventional versus bringing teams that just work, right? This is why I had Jared's team up here, is because this team just works. You can bring similar team every single time and it just works because it has this monster that's so good, right? And Iron Treads, which is so reliable, same as Slowking, right? Greninja being so flexible. But I feel like it's not very often that you get a team that can do that, right? So when you get a team like where is it? You get a team like Flo's, which I've passed, or Laurel's even, which it doesn't look like it synergizes really well when you just look at it right away, but when you really break it down, it can really glue itself together with all of its mons, right? And I feel like that's what these teams like Michael's might lack, is maybe these 5 glue themselves really well together, but the problem is these 5 glue themselves together by doing the same thing, right? When you can get a team that can glue themselves together in any way, not just the one way that they can glue themselves together, that's where I feel like it'll excel in the draft, and they'll get wins by surprising people with the set that they have, because it can be so flexible, right? Anyways, I'm starting to ramble, but yeah, again, just like the Christian theory, I challenge you guys to think about that and make your comments on it. Low rank player, high rank player, it doesn't matter. I think everybody's opinion is important. So that's it for that one. All right, so one of the things I wanted to do was go over my performance, my drafted team, and kind of let you guys know how I feel about that. Um, Also, just for myself to look back on and what my thoughts were about it, because it'll be interesting. But anyways, so my draft overall, I ended up happy with it. Despite not making playoffs, I was happy with what it was doing, what I could do with it. I never really felt super suffocated with my end draft, but it was not what I wanted to draft. So this draft, I kind of wanted to branch out a bit and try something new, but relax at the same time and not stress over it. And that kind of started with Sneasler. Once I knew that I was second pick, it was either going to be Ursaluna or Sneasler, and I wanted to try picking something that wasn't just bulky attacker, which is usually what I do. So I went with Sneasler, and my core for Sneasler was going to be Sneasler, Deoxys D, and Mandibuzz. I didn't really write backup plans for that core. So when Mandibuzz went round 2, I was pretty blindsided. Didn't really know what to do from that point on, since I just couldn't figure out a way to make the core that I wanted with just Deoxys D. So Mega Aggron came around, and like I explained earlier, is when I see that Pokemon in tier 2, there's just not really a reason to not draft it. So I drafted it, and I kind of fell into the same things that I usually do and play with and draft with. I tried to do it without a Wish Passer, obviously couldn't. It was causing me issues. So yeah, I ended up drafting very similarly to how I normally do. I also caught myself in a bit of a pickle when I drafted things in tiers where I couldn't trade away without, how do I explain it? Basically, when I ended up with Silvally Fairy and Florges, my idea was to go for Latios and just botch the Sneasler thing, because I didn't get the core that I wanted, and what I was now doing with my team wasn't really fitting for Sneasler. But the issue with that was I had to make a trade to do a trade. So every way that I figured it out to do the Latios thing, and a couple other routes, I had to use like 2 to 3 trades to make the core viable, and I didn't really want to do that. So I ended up doing obviously what I have now. The last thing I'm going to mention about my draft was, yes, Rotom Heat synergized perfectly with Mega Aggron, but like I explained in the Are These Pokemon Too High, it was really suffocating for me to try and use Rotom any other way than Heavy Duty Boots, because it's Fire type. Most teams should and have Stealth Rock users, and I didn't want to risk killing my own Rotom Heat off by rocks, just trying to run a Choice Scarf set or a Spec set or Rocky Helmet or something. So I felt very suffocated in how I could build Rotom Heat. That's what led me to trade it away and trade for power, and hope that people were scared of the Volcanion and would hopefully prep for it. And that's what happened in a couple of cases. So now on to my performance. I'm happy I went 4-3. I am not happy that I didn't make playoffs. Obviously, you guys could see by my comments in the game. Jason, I apologize. There's literally no ill will at all towards you. Just a very frustrating moment for me. Yeah, I was pretty unhappy. I did map out the plays during and after. So basically, if I had hit any body presses in those sleep talks, I'm not going to say it was guaranteed to win, but it was pretty grim for Jason after that. Considering he didn't have Leech Seed Protect, he just had Leech Seed, so he couldn't really stall me in that regard. Not to mention, had I gotten rid of the Meowscarada with the body presses, with any of the body presses, by the way, the body press KO'd behind screens as well, so he wouldn't have Flower Trick anymore, so he wouldn't be able to bypass my defense. And then he didn't have any strong special attacker to deal with Hypno. So, yeah, overall, happy with my performance. I was able to get a win over a top tier player, which, sorry, excuse me. Which, yeah, you could say there was a little luck involved in regards to Calvin misplaying a couple times, but, you know, I would really encourage people to think like, how did I make Calvin misplay, right? And how many times did I have to make the correct play? How many times did I have to sack the correct Pokemon or keep the correct amount of health to get that far and to put Calvin in a position where it was win or lose? So, yeah, there was a little luck involved in terms of Calvin misplaying in the end, but there was a lot of ways that I put myself in the position to make sure that it was 50-50. So, but yeah, that's how I feel about my draft and my performance. I'm hopefully going to be looking into practicing in the off season. I will also recommend and help in whatever way to get a draft going sooner than 2 years. Yeah, overall, I will say the divisions were very balanced. I was very happy with them, not just my own, but I was very happy at looking all the divisions. And there was, there was upsets. There was a lot of there was a lot of tension in the end. There was a lot of divisions besides Jonas's division that were really close. It was do or die games based on differential, or if this person beat this person they were in. And I'd encourage you guys to maybe give Calvin and I'm pretty sure it was Calvin who only divided the divisions up, but admins, please correct me if I'm wrong. Encourage you guys to thank them for making divisions like that, because it could have been really bad as well, right? And that goes to show how well our ranking system is, right? If we were able to spread it out and make it that balanced, it goes to show what we're doing is working in regards to balance. So on top of that, I'd like to thank Calvin, I guess thank him for making it balanced, but I was very happy to not have to fight Chris or Hayden or Zeb for a playoff spot. The last couple of seasons have been very frustrating because I've been in the same division as them, and it's nice to be able to talk with them about it and not have to be against them in the end, right? The last thing that I want to mention about the draft now, this one, I don't have any personal hate or anger towards anybody in this regard, but when I hear players say that they don't have time to make a plan or battle, it's incredibly annoying and incredibly frustrating. And I get that, emergencies happen, but that is exactly why you plan to do something before the last day. Unless you know that plan before the last day, you're 150% going to make it. Or the person that you've planned it with is 100% going to make it, and you are. I would recommend to those people that didn't have time or emergencies came up to plan for earlier than Sunday. On top of that, there's a lot of dads in this group. There's a lot of families in this group that got to put time into their family. They got to either cook food, they got to go to work. It's 5, 6, 7 days a week. I mean, God, Jared's got one of the craziest jobs out there, being on the oil rig fields, and he seems to make time for every battle, right? On top of that, if you can't make a battle and you're willing to forfeit, you're 10 times better off by turning on Pokemon Showdown, closing your eyes, and clicking any attack that's on the board. you're probably going to lose, obviously. But at least you don't have to forfeit and suffer consequences, right? It really is that easy, right? I mean, Chris and Zeb and a few others I know play on their phone. If they can play on their phone and be effective in winning, then you can play on your phone and click buttons, right? Also, there's a lot of other busy people, not just family members, but I mean, Calvin's busy almost 6-7 days a week. With this, he does a lot of work for the NCPL, and he does a lot of work for his own career, right? And that goes for a lot of other players in here as well that, you know, also have just like other restraints and things that they must do during the week. So I'd encourage those players that didn't have time or forfeited and are now suffering the consequences to organize, play earlier. If it's going to cost you in the week, play earlier, right? You got to do what you got to do. I just hate seeing people suffer consequences when they don't have to. And that's my biggest gripe. I'm not mad at anybody in particular. I'm mad that you suffered consequences when you didn't have to, right? So yeah, that's my thoughts on the draft, my performance, my own draft. Feel free to make comments on it, but that is exactly how I feel. So overall, that's it. I'm actually gonna pop back real quick. There was one last point that I wanted to talk about. I'm gonna preface it by saying, you know, hats off to Jared. He beat me, and he beat me fair and square. He beat me good. This is no pick to him or anything like that, but it was something that a few people said to me right away. Why the hell did you let yourself get taunted multiple times? Why'd you keep doing that? Blah blah blah. You know, and obviously the people that said it were not meaning it maliciously, but they were honestly dumbfounded. They're like, you know, like, why the fuck did you let that happen, right? I want to show you guys the position that I was in and the reason why that it needed to go that way, and I'd had to hope that I got the defog and he didn't taunt. Otherwise I would lose. Just to mention here, I'll bring you guys to the screen of the turn that I'm going to give you the example on, because it happened in this way several times. Okay, so right here, Surf does not kill me. It's a 2-hit KO. It does like 57% or something like that. So with screens up, I have nothing that can kill Titan. With double screens, there's nothing. He will absolutely kill me. Ice Shard kills everything in one shot, I believe, except for Aggron, which he would outspeed anyways. So even if I was to use Choice Scarf Sneasler, he would kill me with Ice Shard. So it didn't matter. And Aqua Jet, of course, does nothing. So I had to get the screens away to progress in the game. If I did not get the screens away, then I would lose. So in this position here, we double switched. So he got his screens up, and then he didn't volt switch. He just switched out into Greninja. I had Aggron in, and I switched into Rotom Heat. So we both have equal turns right now. So in this position, he cannot kill me with Surf, but I can kill him with Thunderbolt or Volt Switch, even behind the light screen. Okay. If I kill him behind the light screen, he has 4 more turns of light screen, and he has 6 more turns of reflect. That would mean Slowking G comes in, and then Slowking G Chilly Receptions, and then Titan comes in, and there'll be 2 more turns left on light screen, and there'll be 4 more turns left on reflect. Okay? That's enough for him to basically wipe out my entire team. I have to get the screens away. So I have to click defog in this situation every time. If I kill the Greninja, and this happened in several cases where I had the opportunity to kill the Pokemon in front of me, but the screens were up. I need to get the screens away and kill the Pokemon. So I just wanted to clarify that. Yes, he hit several taunts. Yes, he made the correct play in clicking the taunts. But I could not click any other button except defog. Now, there's ways that I could have not got myself into this position, for sure. But I just wanted to mention that there was not a lot of options for me. Like, I can dive into it deeper. Maybe there was an option, but from this perspective right now, and from my perspective in the game, the option was to defog or I would lose. Because if the screens were up and Titan got the defense boost plus the screens, I would literally have nothing to kill it. So, yeah, I needed to click defog in these several situations. I just wanted to clarify that so people knew that it wasn't just like, what the fuck's he doing? Like, why is he being a dummy? Right? No, it's because I had to. I didn't have, at least what it looks like right now, and what it looked like in the game, I did not have anything to deal with Titan and the screens at the same time. Because I couldn't defog, I couldn't survive a hit once the Titan was out. So, even if I had Scarf Sneasler, which I mentioned earlier, he would die for my shard. Alright, that's the last little point I wanted to make. I might have a couple other things here to go over in the video, but enjoy.